Hello everyone. We are about to start the second session of the National Webinar Series, Ethics in Higher Education. I welcome Dr. Diana and Isaac, IQAC Coordinator of Marathanesius College, for the welcome address.
Thank you, Sarita. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. A very good evening to one and all of you, and a hearty welcome to the second session of National Webinar Series on Ethics in Higher Education, organized by the IQAC of Marathanesius College, Kodamangalam, under the UGC Paramarsh scheme. Speaking about our college, we are a NAC accredited A+ grade institution with autonomous status. We are also ranked 86th in the present NIRF ranking. And as part of our commitment towards quality enhancement, IQAC has taken this initiative for organizing a national webinar series with eminent panelists from across the world. We are very much privileged to have with us today Professor Balaganapathi Devarakonda, Professor and Head, Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi. He will be talking about ethics and professionalism in higher education. We are all excitedly looking forward to hearing from you, sir. With great respect, I take it as an honor to welcome you on behalf of the IQAC of Marathanesius College, Kodamangalam, to this national webinar series. Welcome, sir. May I also take this moment to welcome our principal, Dr. Shanti Avira ma'am, who is a constant source of support to all the initiatives of IQAC. May I also welcome the faculty members, research scholars, students from our institution, mentee institutions, and all the participants of this webinar who have joined us through this Google Meet and YouTube live streaming. Thank you. Have a great session ahead. Over to you, Sarita ma'am.
Thank you, Diana. Good evening, all of you. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce you all to the speaker of the day, Professor Balaganapathi Devarakonda. Professor Devarakonda is a distinguished professor, eminent researcher, and above all, a great speaker. He is currently working as a professor in the Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi. He had been Chief Advisor of the Center of Ethics and Values, Ramanujam College, Delhi, from 2017 to 20. Professor Devarakonda has specialization in social and political philosophy, historiography of Indian philosophy, philosophy of religion, and human rights. He has many research publications and books to his credit and has done many presentations as research person. He is editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Applied Ethics, and he is associated with many professional bodies also. Today, he is going to talk to us about ethics and professionalism in higher education, a topic of interest to all of us, we all being part of higher education institutions. With these introductory remarks, I invite Professor Balaganapathi Devarakonda to take over the session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sarita, for this kind invitation and also kind introduction. I'm hoping that I will be able to share my screen. Is that okay with all of you? Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarita Nair, for this wonderful invite. I'm glad that Marathanesius College of Kodamangalam is organizing National Webinar Series on Ethics in Higher Education. And Dr. Sarita has contacted me. Because of her, I am here today. So I submit my sincere gratitude to her for this kind invite. See, friends, the theme that is given to me, okay, because I have been talking about ethics and professionalism and higher education on many platforms. So probably that is the reason why Dr. Sarita has asked me to speak on the same thing, okay. When we talk about, say, this is the theme, ethics, professionalism, and higher education. So we are trying to bring these three together, and these three definitely have some affinity, or probably stronger affinity, which I'm very sure all of us know about it, but sometimes over a period of time, out of fatigue, etc., we tend to forget these very important aspects of professional life, of all of us, because all of us are teachers and all of us have been teaching, or some of you may be research scholars as well. All of us know what is ethics, what is professionalism, and what is higher education, and how ethics is related to higher education, how professionalism is required in higher education, what kind of professionalism exists elsewhere, and what kind of relation exists between ethics and professionalism, which comes forward in the form of professional ethics, etc. But still, though we may already know a lot about these things, I will make a very humble, small effort in bringing certain important points into the focus so that we will be able to understand our own professional responsibility towards higher education system and towards our nation and towards our own future as well. So that is my major concern that we have. When we talk about ethics and professionalism in higher education, friends, see, especially higher education, we are all teachers, okay, or probably teacher educators and future teachers. What is the focus? Now, what is it that we deal with in higher education? So, yeah, we know that we deal with textbooks, we know that we deal with classrooms, we know that we deal with syllabus, we know that we deal with examinations, but at the abstract level or concrete abstract level, we deal with two things. One is knowledge, and the other one is our own future. So please keep this in your mind, okay? We deal with knowledge in the sense that not just the knowledge that is already there, we also contribute to the knowledge, okay? So we are also, as a part of higher education, we are also creators, enhancers, or people who add to the existing knowledge, okay? So that is how, never think that as teachers we are only supposed to disseminate the knowledge. No, we are supposed to disseminate the knowledge, but we are also supposed to generate the knowledge, right? So we have a two-way responsibility with us. One is generation of the knowledge and dissemination of the knowledge to the students, and that is where we deal with knowledge. The second one, I said we deal with our future. So how is it so? We deal with younger minds. Okay, as teachers, we deal with younger minds, and when we are dealing with younger minds, obviously we are dealing with our future. If we don't perform our responsibility in a proper way, that stake, it is our own future which is at stake. That is how the responsibility of a teacher is more than responsibility of or responsibility of an administrator or whoever it may be. Because if the teacher gives wrong, and which leads to the spoil, which will have negative effects on the future of all of us together. That's not just one, all of us together. So understanding teachers more responsible and more accountable and more professional and more ethical. So that's what I wanted to stress when I say what is it that we deal with. Once we understand that we deal with knowledge and we deal with our future, we would definitely feel more responsible, because most of the times what we think is when I'm going to the classroom, I am only concerned about this lecture that I have to give. No, actually, what I'm going to do in the classroom will have effect on the knowledge as such, and also will have a larger effect on my own future as well. Okay, it's not just the future of the student. Sometimes we wrongly tend to think that it affects the, actually it affects as much, it affects the future of the student. That is where, say for example, if you don't teach a teacher of engineer for construction or treatment, it becomes difficult. Your own future and the future of the generations are getting, that's what should make us more responsible towards the knowledge and our own future, professionalism and higher education. I would be talking about what is a profession. I'll begin with profession, okay? Since we have an important component called professionalism here, I will talk about what is the profession and how teaching is different from other professions. That's what I would talk in this component. That would be the first component of my talk. And in the second component, I would be talking about what is ethics and what are various ethical theories. How do we understand them? Some of you may be from philosophy, you may be already acquainted with them, but some of our friends may not be acquainted with these ethical theories. So I will try to slightly introduce ethical theories through an example so that they will also have a better understanding and better opening into ethics. And then the third component, which would be the last one, would be like ethics and professionalism. And I would say that when ethics and professionalism come together, they lead to a kind of responsibility and accountability. They stress a kind of accountability and responsibility on the part of the professional, whoever it may be, whether it is a doctor or a teacher or whoever. So I would argue that in higher education, as a teacher, what kind of responsibility or accountability that we have. So I would be stressing about that in the third or last part of my talk. I understand that I have 1 hour time, so I'll try to complete my talk within 45 minutes so that we can have a discussion. What is a profession? This question we have to ask ourselves because this is the one which takes us to further clarity with regard to what kind of professional ethics that we are going to talk about. Okay, so it definitely profession is different from vocation and hobby. Okay, hobby is something that we cultivate for the sake of our own enjoyment, and vocation is also different. But profession is more a stronger one, focused one. Uh, so modern institutionalism has stressed the importance of profession more. So basically, we are not saying that before modern institutionalism there were no professionals, but the modern coinage of the word profession and its use as we understand it now is because of the modern institutionalism. Okay. Now, how does profession differ from occupation? The difference, the variance between occupation and profession is very important for us. See, all of us are in some occupation. We are in occupation as teachers, but we are also professionals as teachers. So, what is the slight difference that we find between these two? The one important aspect that we have to note when it comes to the difference or distinction between occupation and profession is this. An occupation becomes a profession when a group of individuals sharing the same occupation organize to work in a morally permissible way or to work to support a moral ideal. So morality is the one which makes occupation, the people who are into this occupation to become professionals. So each one of us are into the occupation of teaching, but teaching as such, when it is an organized one, okay, under the moral support or under the support of a moral ideal, only then we call it a profession. That is how the relation between profession and ethics is integral relation. It is not that ethics has to come out from elsewhere into the profession. Okay, the very definition of profession includes the moral component within it, which is to be properly understood. The other important point that I want to stress here with regard to this profession is that the standard set for the profession would be beyond what law in general, marketplace, or ordinary morality or public opinion demand. Okay, so law also demands certain things from us, and in ordinary, regular, everyday life, also we follow certain kind of morality. And we also have public opinion, which influences our course of actions of the individual. So basically, the profession that we are talking about sets moral standards or standards which are beyond these. Okay, the professional standards would be beyond the marketplace or ordinary morality, and beyond public opinion, and beyond sometimes what law prescribes even. So that is how profession sets these higher standards for itself. Okay, So that is very important that we have to make note of when it comes to understanding what a profession is. And these professions, when you are into a profession, you have obligations, okay? And these obligations are very important for us to know. So only when you know that you're obligated to somebody, obligated to something, then your course of action automatically changes, takes a different shape. Okay. For instance, when you know that the action is going to impact your own family members, then your course of action would be different. And if you think that the course of action that you are taking up impacts somebody else who is not known to us, then your course of action would be slightly different. That is how the distinction when it comes to the obligations that each of us as professionals have, once we know them, what kind of obligations to whom we are obliged, then our course of action would definitely change. And in this regard, it is important to know the distinction between known and unknown. I'm sorry, it has to be known and unknown. Wrongly, it is written as known and known. Because, as I said, if the obligations are towards the known, then they will have stronger impact. And if the obligations are towards the unknown, there is a possibility that the impact would be less stronger. Okay, so that is how known and unknown are very important in academic life. Sorry, in ethical perspective of obligations towards others. Okay, so for example, you have obligations towards every professional. Here we are not just talking about teachers or higher education professionals. We are talking about any professional. Every professional has an obligation to the employer. Okay, you cannot deny that, and the employer is obviously known employer. Okay, so this would be always very strong. But sometimes, along with the employer, you also have obligation towards your clients and customers. Okay, for instance, if you are taking a teaching profession, then your students. Okay, so then here sometimes these clients and customers are known and sometimes unknown as well. Okay, if it is students, obviously it is known. If it is customers in other professions, it is sometimes unknown as well. Okay, the other obligation that we have along with the employer and the customer and the clients, the other group of people to whom we are professionally obliged is other professionals within the profession, which means colleagues. So, for example, if you are a doctor, you have obligations towards other doctors, which is very important. If you are a teacher, you have obligations towards your colleagues, other teachers, other fellow teachers. So these obligations are also very important that we have to keep in our mind. The fourth group to which the obligations would be there of the professionals, morality and ethics can be attributed at the level of human action. So if we are attributing ethics to the human action, then this analysis is required because every human action will have these three components. Okay, nobody would disagree with me in this regard, I believe, because every human action will have action itself. Okay, this one, and then an agent who performs the action or actions, and the outcome of the action. Okay, whatever may be the outcome of the action. So these three components would definitely be part of human action. Okay, so if this is the case, the question that we have to ask, okay, because we are analyzing theory of action in for the sake of understanding ethics. So that is how we are supposed to ask this question: that where is ethics? Where does ethics lie in these three? So we have three components: agent, action, and the outcome of the action. where do we find ethics? Do we find ethics only in the agent, or do we find ethics in the action, or do we find that, or do we attribute ethics to the outcome of the action? So where do we place it is an important question that we have to ask. Where is, for example, if we say ethics is talking about rightness or wrongness, good and bad of human action, then where do you place good? Good with regard to the outcome of the action, or good with regard to the action itself, good with regard to the agent? So where do you place? No? So how do you analyze ethics within the realm of human action is an important question that we have to address. And by analyzing this, I will try to provide you, or I will try to explain you three very important ethical theories, which there are many ethical theories, but three fundamental ethical theories that we are supposed to know, so that we can perform our own duties or our actions within the realm of higher education as professionals in a better way. So that's my goal. So there are various theories that have come up, and I'll talk about three theories that we have. Some scholars argue that it is the outcome of the action that is important. See, you are acting, okay? How will I say whether it is right or wrong, good or bad? Only on the basis of the consequences, outcome, consequences of the action. So there are certain theorists who argue that ethics comes into picture at the level of this part, outcome or consequences. Okay, so only on the basis of the consequences we understand an action to be either right or wrong, good or bad. Okay, so this is this is one set of scholars who argue this way, and these scholars are called consequentialists. So consequentialism as an ethical theory is very important, and in fact, in the modern times and even in the contemporary times, this is which has more prevalence and more influence among the people. Okay, so we seem to be more accepting this consequentialist approach to ethics, consequentialist theory of ethics. Okay, so here, uh, even if the agent, whoever may be the agent, whether good or bad, it doesn't matter. However, you have done the action, it doesn't matter. What matters is the consequences of the action. Okay? If the consequences of the action are good, then the action is good. If the consequences of the action are bad, then the action is bad. The second group of theorists argue that no, it is not at the level of consequences that we have to locate goodness or badness or ethicality of an action. It is to be located within the action itself. How you perform the action is very important. Whether you are performing your action, which means your duty, in a proper way or not, is more important than the consequences themselves. Okay, so if you're true to yourself, and if you're true to your action, if you're true to your duty and performing your duty as per the requirements, then such kind of action can be considered to be ethical. So goodness and badness of the action, the second theory argues, is based on the performance of the action itself as one's duty. Performance of your duties would make it ethical. So this group of the second group of scholars who advocate this view are called deontologists. For example, friends, when it comes to Bhagavad Gita, no? The text Bhagavad Gita, what is being stated is Arjuna was asked to perform his duty. Okay, he says, no, people will die. I don't want to kill all these people. So killing may be wrong or right, but Krishna says, no, it is not the consequences, who will die and how many people will die, that is important. What is important is your performance of the action itself, as you have certain duties as a human being, and you are supposed to perform your duties, and that is how duty for duty's sake. This is what is the motto of deontological theories, which argue that the performance of the action is more important. The true goodness or badness is attributed at the level of action itself. Okay, so now these theories, the deontologists would say the outcome doesn't matter. If you are doing your duty, even if the outcome is negative, it doesn't matter. It still be considered to be good because you are performing your duty in a meticulous way, in a perfect way. The third theory that we find here, which is rooted in the agent. Okay, the other group of scholars argue that what is very important is the intentions of the agent. Okay, see, if the agent is more important, the agent has to be virtuous, and the intentions of the agent are very important, which decide the goodness or badness of an action. If your intentions are to do good, even if you are not able to perform the action well, and even if the consequences are negative, still you would be considered to be a virtuous person, a good person. Okay, so that is how the third theory argues that goodness and badness are the attributes of the agent himself. Okay, so that is how this theory is called theory of virtue. Okay, virtue theory. So these are the three theories that we get in ethics, which stress three different aspects of theory of action. One talks about the importance of the agent. The other one talks about the importance of the action. The third one talks about the importance of the consequences. And the theory which advocates the importance of consequences says only on the basis of the consequences we can consider an action to be good or bad, irrespective of how the action is made or how the action is performed, and whether it is your duty or somebody else's duty, it doesn't matter. And whether you have good intentions or bad intentions also doesn't matter. Okay, so that is how consequentialists argue. And the deontologists, the second group of scholars, argue it doesn't matter whether you have good intentions or bad intentions, whether you are virtuous, whether you are good or bad as an individual, and it doesn't also matter whether it leads to good results, consequences, or bad consequences. If you have performed your duty in a perfect manner, then that can be considered to be ethical. And the third theory argues that no, the intentions are very important, and one has to be virtuous. Okay, because the goodness and badness are attributed to the individual himself. And if the action is whether the action is performed as a duty or whether the consequences are good or bad, it doesn't matter if the agent, the performer, is virtuous. So this is how we have three theories in ethics that we talk about: virtue theory, deontological theory, and then consequentialist theory, which is often also talked as utilitarian theory. Okay, so where do we place ethics in them? And now, where is good and bad involved? This is what we have to look at, and I have also explained you variance in these three theories. Say, for example, I can give you an example and try to explain it. Okay. Yeah, these are the theories. The example is there is a swiftly flowing river, and we found that suddenly somebody, a small boy, fell into the river in this swiftly flowing river, and he is shouting for help. Okay, and nobody was responding to his call, and everybody was quietly observing because the river is very swift. So nobody dares to jump into that to save the boy. And in between, after a few minutes of silence, somebody suddenly jumps into the river and swiftly flowing river and saves the boy. Okay, so now what is the consequence of the action? Consequence of the action is saving the boy. So what is very important is only saving the life of the boy, and it has happened, and that's how we consider the action to be good, right? So this is the consequentialist approach. Uh, so after some time, no, when the boy was rescued, boy's mother came there, and then she says, "Oh, good that you have saved our boy." Okay, which means the boy who was saved, the person who has saved the boy is his own father. Okay, now the kind of goodness that you attribute to the boy, attribute to the savior, comes down a little because uh, the boy fell into the river and there was a silence for some time, which means though he is his father, he did not jump immediately. He waited for some time to see whether somebody else would jump into the river and save him. Okay, so his duty, and also you understand that it is the duty of the father to save the child, and that is how you don't consider the consequences. You move to the second level where you think that since you understood that this is his father, it is his duty to save his father. Okay, so that is at the second level, which comes as a deontological theory. But then it did not end there. The savior, the father, looked back and said, "Who is the one that has pushed me into the river?" Okay, and now when you hear this statement, okay, when you once understand that he did not jump on his own, which means to perform his duty, and he doesn't have any intentions of saving the boy, rather he was pushed by somebody else into the river. Okay, now do you attribute any moral worth to the action of the individual? No. See, if there are no intentions, then you don't seem to be attributing any moral worth to the action. So that is how these three theories can be very well understood in terms of the consequences of the action, performance of the action as the duty, and the intentions of the agent. Okay, so sometimes all these three are very important, but I am trying to explain through this example. What I am trying to explain is there is a difference between consequences and performing the action as a duty and having intentions of performing that action so that it can have its own moral worth. Okay, so this example helps us to understand the consequentialist approach, the deontological approach, and also the virtue theory that we are talking about, where intentions are also very important. So I just thought this way I can introduce you to all these three theories. Now the question is, now that we have understood what is the profession and professionalism, and then we also have looked at the ethics and ethical theories. Okay. Uh, Sarita ji, if I'm crossing my time limits, please do let me know. Okay.
Sir, it's going
I will try to.
time.
Yeah. How much time do I have still?
Now it is about 5:15. So we have time until 5:30.
Okay, okay. I'll try to complete it as quick as possible so that we have some discussion. Okay. So now the question that comes forward is, now that we have understood the profession, obligations to the to various people, and then ethical theories, where do you place yourself as a teacher is very important. Do you place yourself at the level of consequentialism? Do you place yourself at the level of deontology, or do you place yourself at the level of virtue ethics? Okay, we have to ask this question while performing our duties um, in the working place, whatever it may be. Okay, so this question is very important to me. You have to see whether you are a virtuous person or whether you are a duty-minded person or whether you are only concerned about the consequences, at the end of the day, because the system always demands tangibility of your actions, and that is how system would always be looking at consequentialism. Okay, the result is very important to them. Whether you are bringing 100% result or 10% result is important to the system, but as an individual, what is important to you? Deontology or virtue? What is important? That's what we have to look at and try to understand. And this is where I would argue the accountability is more important in understanding professional ethics. Okay, so just a minute, let me try to. Yeah, accountability in ethics in higher education is important, and accountability involves both teaching and research as well. So, what kind of accountability that we have as a teacher, and what kind of accountability that we think we have as a researcher is very important, because we are only talking about higher education, and higher education involves not just teaching but also research. Okay, and sometimes UGC says research is not required for the college teachers. Sometimes it says research is required for the college teachers. It doesn't matter. Basically, as a higher education professional, we have to take both of them into equal consideration. Okay, that's what I believe. And now the question is, what is professional ethics that we are referring to? We understand that there is something called general ethics as such, which is there for all of us and which we have to follow. And we also understand that there are professionals, and professionals also have a different kind of ethics. Though I have clearly argued before, saying that ethics is an integral part of any profession. Now the question is, how do we relate these two, ethics and professional ethics? It is often understood that general ethics or ethics that we talk about is a broader and ethics. It should not be that it would go against the general ethics. But even then, friends, professional ethics, each of the professions demand higher levels of integrity and accountability than general ethics. See, as an individual, you may be free to do certain kind of things, but as a professional, you are not so free to do certain kind of things. Okay, for instance, as an individual, you may be free to do whatever, but as a doctor, no, you have certain responsibilities and certain kind of integrity and accountability that is required at the level of performing the profession. Similarly, it is with the teachers as well. Okay, that is how the professional ethics is more focused responsibility, stresses the more focused responsibility. As a teacher, your responsibility is more focused than as an individual in the society. And if there is a conflict, sometimes it does happen that there is a conflict between professional ethics and general ethics. So in such kind of things, there is a big debate that is happening. People do argue that general ethics must be, since it is a wider one, that is to be followed. But finally, what is being well established now is that professional ethics has to prevail over general ethics. Okay, that's because profession demands more integrity and accountability directly to the patient or the client with whom you are dealing with. So this is as per the regulations and demands of that profession. Okay, and this is with regard to the relation between ethics and professional ethics. As teachers, okay, performing our duties is very important, and this is what is called the deontology. And with regard to our classwork, evaluation, extension activities, whatnot that we refer to, okay, and performing one's duty ethically is more important. Okay, performing one's duty and performing one's duty ethically is more important, which means it's not just attending to the classwork, it is also to be on time, okay, and not getting biased towards evaluations and supporting the students. Okay, this is where see, somebody may say, yeah, I take all my classes, but that is not enough. And somebody may say, yeah, I complete my evaluation within the time, but that's not enough. And somebody may say, I do take students for extension activities, etc. Okay, so this is just mere performance of the duties. But what is required is performance of the duties ethically is required. So when I say I'm taking my all my classes, it is also important to be on time. Okay, and when it comes to the evaluation, not being corrupt in the sense that not being biased towards certain students and unbiased towards certain or favorable towards certain students, and also extension activities like supporting the students, all of them in an equal way. Uh, Another important aspect with regard to teaching ethics, my friends, is not updating one's knowledge. It is not just enough if you perform your duties and if you perform your duties ethically. What is also required on the part of the teachers is not updating one's knowledge. We are as teachers supposed to update our knowledge regularly and frequently so that we give the students the latest knowledge that is available. Okay, latest knowledge is not just in the textbooks. That's how we have to go beyond the textbooks, and that is how we have to do research. So research becomes integral to teaching ethics, not because research is doing some project elsewhere and trying to do some nonsense, but it also becomes a part of the teaching itself, in the sense that while teaching you are supposed to give the updated knowledge to the students. So that is another important aspect that we have to take note of. And not working for self improvement is also a kind of corruption, according to me. Okay, please don't mind me using this word. Each one of us as teachers are supposed to work continuously on our own improvement as teachers, okay, as human beings. And if you don't do that continuously, which then it is also unethical. Okay, when I say self improvement, we are supposed to spend some time on ourselves and be reflective about ourselves as the individuals, ourselves as the teachers, and ourselves with regard to our own duties that we are performing. So this self-reflectivity on the part of each one of us is very important with regard to teaching. So duties, performance of the duties, and updating our knowledge and working for the self-improvement are very important aspects of professional ethics as a part of teaching ethics as a part of professional ethics. The other important component that I want to stress is the research ethics. Uh, we are all, as researchers, contributors to the knowledge. As I said, we are not just disseminators of knowledge, we are also generators of knowledge. And that is how we come together and contribute to the knowledge, and that is how knowledge grows. Okay? Here, it will not be out of place, friends. What is this? What is it that happens in research? Some people say it is researching the same thing. So it's like combining few things and placing them together, etc. Basically, research is a movement from known to the unknown. Okay, you have certain kind of knowledge, and you want to push the walls of the knowledge. Okay, it is through research. What you do is you try to push the walls of the known, push the walls of the knowledge. Okay, so that more domain which is not part of the knowledge comes into the domain of knowledge. So what we try to do in research is we stand in the known domain. Okay, we stand in the known domain through our research tools and through our methodologies. We try to push the walls of the known or unknown and try to bring more unknown into the domain of known. So that's what we do in research. So there is always a movement from known to the unknown, which is very important. And unknown is the one which instigates us to, attracts us to do more rigorous research. Okay, so as contributors of knowledge, we have to be original, innovative with regard to theme and method, and this is very important thing, my friends. Like, people do talk about perfection, but I don't believe in perfection, because what I believe is, if you have an ideal person in front of you, a perfect person, and if you try to achieve or reach out to him, it is never possible. So, for example, I can never become Radhakrishnan. I can only become Balaganapathi in an improved sense. Okay, so that is how what we have to continuously strive at is one step ahead of my own self. So when I come out of my class, I should feel that, yeah, sometimes people do criticize teachers, saying that what is it that they do, teachers? They only repeat what was already stated. Here, it will not be out of place. I will request you to think, do you think that you merely repeat the previous class in the present class and also in the future classes? So how do you look at it? Is it mere repetition? I don't think so. Then how do you look at it? Some people say it is not repetition, but it is a kind of stage performance. Okay, so you have already the script with you, syllabus with you, and you perform it there in the classroom. That is also wrong, because in the stage performance, when you go to the class, how do you see yourself performing on the stage? But I don't agree with this kind of an explanation, kind of metaphor, because here in the stage performance, the script is already decided, script is already written and presented. So we don't go by the script. No? We try to be innovative as much as possible while teaching in the classroom. So suddenly you ask somebody a question, and some student gets up and asks you a question. So it is definitely not a stage performance. Then what is it? No, I consider teaching to be, or a class teaching to be, a spontaneous performance. No, it is a kind of spontaneous performance. Though you know that what topic you are going to teach there, you don't know what kind of words that you are going to use. What would be my next sentence? I don't know, but still I go there and perform. And that is how, since it is a spontaneous performance, after you come out of the class, you always understand whether you have done well or you haven't done well, or whether you have taught better than the last class, or whether you couldn't do it well. Because see, all as human beings, all of us may not be performing with same rigor all the time. Okay, and you know, one thing, as teachers, the problem that we also face is, if you get the name that he's a good teacher or she's a good teacher, then you have to live up to those standards that you have set for yourself, and you have to perform similarly or better than that all the time. This is what people would expect, the students would expect from you. So if you don't perform well, then sometimes if you are close to the students, they themselves will come and tell you that you couldn't do well today in the class, right? So the kind of standards that you set for yourself are very important, and that is how every time you should try to move one step ahead of yourself, and that is how, as a contributor to the knowledge, you can improve yourself. Other problem that majorly that the Indian society, especially elsewhere as well, that we are facing is plagiarism. Okay, owning others' property without their knowledge, without acknowledgement, without their knowledge and without acknowledgement as well. See, obviously you don't try to take the property of the others, right? Similarly, you cannot take the work of the others as well. Somehow, I don't know why people have started thinking that it is possible, which has given way for this major disease that we find in the academic world, in the name of plagiarism. So, but if you look at Indian ethical perspective, we find these theories, no, ethical cardinal virtues of Indian tradition, in terms of ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, and aparigraha. They clearly say asteya and aparigraha. You have to stay away from others' property and you should not steal others' property. These are the ethical virtues which have been stressed in Indian tradition continuously. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened in the modern period. We tend to be more concerned about others' property than our own property, and others snatching away others' property than our own property and claiming it to be our own one. So this is to be avoided. And friends, in this regard, I would like to stress, yeah, this important aspect that you find. This is a UGC document, Academic Integrity and Prevention of Plagiarism document, which has come out in 2018. I want you to read this document, which helps us in a better way to reorient ourselves towards our profession. Academic integrity is the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property. Plagiarism means the practice of taking someone else's work or idea and passing them as one's own. These are the definitions of academic integrity and plagiarism that are provided by UGC. And please make note of these things so that we don't fall prey to unfortunate things. Okay. So the objectives of this document that is presented is to create awareness about responsible conduct of research, thesis, dissertation, promotion of academic integrity, and prevention of misconduct, including plagiarism, in academic writing among the students, faculty, researchers, and staff, and also to establish institutional mechanism through education and training to facilitate responsible conduct of research, and also to develop systems to detect plagiarism and to set up mechanisms to prevent plagiarism and punish a student, faculty, researcher, or staff of higher education institution committing the act of plagiarism. So, friends, we have to take note of these major concerns that we have, and be careful with regard to unprofessional things or unethical things that we find within our profession that we must stop ourselves from. So with this, I would like to stop here and mention one thing, that we have, as individual human beings, we have obligations towards our own self. We also have obligations towards the known others. We also have obligations towards unknown others, okay, which means other human beings and so many other people around us. And this is where it is very important that it is not enough if you realize your obligations to your own self and ignore your obligations to others. This is what is mostly happening. You realize the obligations of your own self and you ignore the obligations that you have towards your known other and unknown other. And sometimes what happens is, even if you think that you know the obligations that you have towards yourself, they are wrongly conceptualized, in the sense that plagiarism is such kind of wrong conceptualization. You understand the obligations that you have towards yourself, but still you resort to stealing somebody else's work and present it, where you're completely missing your obligations to your own self, which is very dangerous. And our obligations to our future in terms of obligations to the students is very important. And sometimes we do find that some students are not up to the mark, etc. kind of statements. But I would like to stress one important aspect, one sloka that we find in Indian tradition, which says, Amantram aksharam nasti, nasti moolam anaushadham, ayogyaha purusho nasti, yojikas tatra durlabhaha. Okay, there is no letter, alphabet, akshara, that cannot be used as a mantra, and there exists no root, okay, root, which cannot be used as a medicine. Likewise, there is no incompetent or useless person that we find in the world. Similarly, what is missing, or what is difficult to get is scarce to what we don't find is a person who knows how to make good use of all these things. Good use of the alphabet, akshara, good use of the root as an aushadha, and also good use of beings, human beings around us. And I believe that only teachers can do that. Oh, okay, only a teacher and guru can be such kind of yojaka who can use both alphabet, root, and human being in the best possible way to give to create the best future for all of us. So that is what we have to understand is the importance of professionalism in and ethics in higher education. I hope, yeah, I would like to stop myself here. If there are any questions or any concerns that any of you have, I would be happy to respond to them.
Sir, Anant Tyagaraj has commented that apart from teaching, the teachers must be honest, sincere, and update knowledge. Really a worthy and very important message for all teachers of higher education. So it is a comment to your today's session.
Yeah, that's what exactly I'm trying to stress through this lecture, Anandji. Thank you so much for pointing out that. We have to, unless if we don't update our knowledge, which means we are not giving updated knowledge to our younger generation, which is almost like not performing our duty in the way it is expected. So if you are not performing your duty in the way it is expected, then obviously we have to say that we are corrupt, we are biased, and we are corrupt. So corruption is not just taking money from somebody. Corruption happens at many ways in different levels. So we should be very careful as teachers, because we are responsible for our future and also the future of our children, our younger generations. So this responsibility, once we realize, you can never be able to do anything that would harm our future, right? So what is important is realizing this responsibility. It is not that we don't know that we are responsible, but sometimes we tend to forget this responsibility because we would be going with the flow, like going to the department and teaching and then doing some other work and taking care of the family. So in this flow of everyday happenings that we have to take care of, we tend to forget these aspects, these very important aspects of the kind of accountability and responsibility that we have towards ourselves and towards our future generations and towards the humanity at large. So it is not that if I don't teach my class, the whole world is not going to collapse. No, that's not the case. In fact, it may happen as well. No? If there is a if somebody doesn't learn quite well, either engineering or medicine, obviously the student flyovers and buildings will collapse and the patients would die on the table, operation theater. Similarly, it is not that the people from social sciences and humanities can do whatever they want. No, similar kind of responsibilities. It is not that only engineers and teachers of engineering and medicine have the responsibility. Even students of teachers of humanities and social sciences also have equal responsibility, because at the end of the day, these are the ones who are supposed to continue your moral standards and ethical perspectives to the future generations. If you are teaching them, then what will go to you, their own children, and what would go to their own students? Yeah, somebody by name Sanju Thomas ji, you want to say something, please? Yeah, we seem to be competing with each other as educational institutions, educators, to get better ranking in NIRF, NAC, and the whole nonsense that is happening around us. The primary role of the teacher gets sidelined because of multiple roles they have to perform. Is this a good trend? Yeah, definitely, it's not a good trend. That's what I was referring to. You have to see yourself as a consequentialist, because these people, the NAC, NIRF, etc., kind of people, what they look at is consequences. Consequences in the sense that the numerical game is very important to them. Okay, but in the process, we should not lose ourselves, right? So that is how it is a real tough job for the teachers now, especially in this competitive world. It is not that only students compete. No, students have to face this competitive world. The teachers equally have to face this competitive world and try to perform well. So it's not enough if you are a good teacher. It's not enough if you are performing your own duties. It is also important that the consequences are towards you, in support of you. But I believe if you are virtuous and if you are performing your duty, then consequences automatically would follow, right? Always a teacher will only try to train his or her students to be better than them. But many teachers that I have seen have problems in doing so due to his or her ego. Sir, what is your opinion on this? Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying. We have obligations towards our colleagues and we have obligations towards our students. So when the obligation towards our colleague and obligation towards our students come in conflict, you have to finally evaluate them and ask these questions that I have posed in the beginning itself, saying that which obligation is more primary to you? Your obligation towards your students is more primary than the kind of prejudices and ego clashes that you have towards your colleagues. So if we don't understand that, then we are failing ourselves as teachers. So that's where we have to be very careful. See, others need not know it, but internally you know that you're at fault, and will you be able to sleep happily if you haven't performed your duty in the best possible way, or if you have harmed a student because of one colleague or so? No, you cannot sleep well. So it is for your own well-being that you have to basically go by the ethics that we are talking about. I have placed the link here. Okay, this is a link to my academic work, Academia EDU. So you can visit this website and know more about my work. And also I'll place my own personal website link here. And if you would like to know more about my work and myself, you can know about that here. Okay. So anything else? Otherwise, thank you so much. Thank you, Saritaji, for this kind invite, and thank you all for your patience. And I spoke. Hope I made some sense to all of you. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir. Thank you. I will invite Shalini ma'am for the formal vote of thanks. Shalini ma'am, please.
Okay. I'm audible? Yes. Okay. Good evening, all. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the IQAC cell of Marathonasius College. Now, as members of the academic community, we hold the responsibility of conducting all our professional practices, whether it is teaching, research, or dissemination of knowledge, in accordance with the ethical principles. So today we had an opportunity to attend a very interesting session by Professor Balaganapathi, wherein he started with explaining professionalism, ethical theories that establish how one's intentions determine their actions and the outcome from their actions. And finally, he went on to explain the responsibilities and accountability that educators shoulder. So my sincere gratitude to Professor for accepting our invitation and consenting to share your expertise on this very relevant topic of ethics and professionalism in higher education. Thank you, sir. I also would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Shanti Avira, Principal, for her support. Thanks to the coordinator of this webinar and the organizing committee members. Sincere thanks to all the participants. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.